Welcome back to Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President of Teamsters Local 237. I'm now being joined by our public advocate, Bill de Blasio. Bill, welcome.
Greg, thank you, and thank you for doing your show here in such an important place for our city and our nation right now.
Our last guest, Jason Ahmadi, informed us that this is not Zuccotti Park anymore. This has now been named Liberty Square.
You know, it's amazing what impact this is having all over the world. And I think a lot of us, I'm one of the folks who didn't understand at first how this would play out, and it's absolutely extraordinary. The people who did this here have really reopened a debate about income disparity, about what the role of government should be in bringing equity to this country. And it's important, and I think really our political situation is going to be profoundly changed by it.
There's a new poll that was just released
Yes.
that shows that Americans are angry about the income disparity in this country.
You know, Greg, I think it's powerful, and it was right there on the front page of the Times this morning, clear as a bell. I think these protests have helped to crystallize something people were feeling for a long time, that this level of income disparity undermines, our national identity. It undermines our future. It undermines the sense that we're all in this together. And I think what the poll showed is that, in fact, whereas we think, well, voters don't want taxes and they're upset with government, and they obviously showed the frustration with government as well. It also showed a deep desire for equity and a deep desire for the public sector to play a role in figuring out a path forward where Americans have some common purpose. And again, this protest had a lot to do with crystallizing that view for people.
Now, speaking of income disparity,
Yeah.
There's a law in Ohio.
Yep, on
that
collective
is-
bargaining.
Yeah, collective bargaining. And I tell you, the law in Ohio, the county executive in Nassau County tried to do a similar law that he was just going to unilaterally go into contracts right now and strip them of their collective bargaining contracts that they signed already.
Look, I think when we look back on this moment in history, a few years ago, obviously the huge story was the campaign and the election of Barack Obama, and that has changed our politics profoundly. I think the health care reform will ultimately be seen as having changed our nation profoundly for the better when it finally plays out. But now I think the big stories have been what happened in Wisconsin and Ohio and what's happening here at Wall Street. I always tell people that even in the heat of the battle in Wisconsin, a clear majority of Americans, 2 separate national polls, defended the rights of workers in Wisconsin to collective bargaining. This is a country that's about 12% unionized.
Yes.
But in both those national polls, over 60% of Americans believed in the right to collective bargaining. It didn't affect most of them, but they believed it was a right. They believed it was about equity and fairness and guaranteeing people's basic rights. In Ohio, the legislature pushed through a law against collective bargaining, not quite as bad as Wisconsin, but still quite bad. Now the recall effort has taken off. Huge amount of money has been put in by the anti-collective
Yes.
bargaining, anti-union side. But Governor Kasich's popularity is tanking. People think he's not looking out for their needs and their interests. And what we saw in the polling just now is the pro-repeal forces are taking off. And look, I think this is going to be a defining moment. It says to people, you cannot, to all over the country, it says you can't take away rights that people fought for generations. We all in this together. We're all going to have to figure out how to make sense of this economy, but you can't take away the workers' basic rights.
Now, Rachel Maddow played a clip from our former president, Dwight Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And Dwight Eisenhower, the Republican president who built our interstate highways,
Yep.
said that the nation was better when it was unionized. And he was a Republican president, and he understood that in the 1950s we had a high density of unionized households and workers, and we had a booming economy. So people don't understand the roles that unions plays in this country compared to economic justice.
You're exactly right, and again, I think the people understand it better than the media, but the debate certainly doesn't reflect it. You've seen the bumper stickers, the labor movement, the people who brought you the middle class.
Yes.
That's just plain true. And I always say, think of the last 100 years of American history. Labor was such a positive and progressive force in terms of living standards, safety, civil rights, etc. And I think it's becoming clearer again that the role of labor is profound. Eisenhower, said that, understood that, and that was part of how America moved forward. Eisenhower warned against the military-industrial complex. There's a lot of things he said
certainly did.
that was quite enlightened,
yes.
right? And it didn't matter what his party label was. He was enlightened about the course of the nation. But I hope we come back to that now. I hope the things we've been through now say to people, look, if we don't have a middle class, it's all over. Labor brought us to middle class. Labor helps to guarantee the stability and hopefully the growth again of the middle class. Let's accept and realize that we need that in this country and work with the labor movement.
And most importantly, we need jobs. We need jobs for everyone. Everyone who wants a job should have a job.
All about jobs, and what people all over the city, I hear it every day, they want to see the public sector play a more aggressive more aggressive role in job creation. They want us to invest our pension funds. You've been talking about this, Greg, and I thank you for that, in infrastructure and job creation. They want to see government get the memo that people need jobs.
Correct. And also, I want to commend you for coming down here, because you're the public advocate, and I couldn't find a better spot for the public advocate to be but here in Liberty Square with the people.
Thank you. And I wanted to be here, and I've been down here before, and I deeply respect what folks here are doing. And we have to protect their right to do it. You know, the First Amendment, another thing we need to remember to cherish is the First Amendment. They're exercising that right. We have to protect it.
Now, you and I were both in Israel, and we saw a similar protest on
Very
Rothschild
similar.
Boulevard.
Yep, in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, they were sleeping in tents.
And all over. Everywhere we went, there were tent
Yes.
cities. And I think that protest also got at the same issues you're hearing here.
Yes.
You know, income disparity, whether the government was going to play a role in creating jobs and providing, housing and health care, and the sense that something had gone astray that needed to be recaptured and redefined. I think that protest had a profound impact. I think this one's even having a bigger impact.
Yeah, I think the protest came west.
That's right.
what I think.
Right.
So,
migrated.
yes.
Came back on the plane with us.
So, Bill, is there anything you want to say before you go? We have about a minute and a half.
Thank you, Greg. I mean, look, I think just since we're here, I think it's very, very important. You know, you've heard some saber rattling by the mayor about trying to shut down this protest, and then other times he talks about his devotion to the First Amendment. I mean, let's get clear. The city of New York has to get it straight. This is about protecting people's rights, about acknowledging how important it is. This movement has been extraordinarily peaceful, over 6 weeks now. And by the way, the police, with very few exceptions, have also managed to keep a very peaceful relationship with the movement. So my view is this is a case where freedom of expression and public safety go together. There hasn't been a contradiction between those two realities, and we need to respect that. The only problem is if the mayor thinks he can push a button and suddenly end this hugely important protest. That's where the problem would emerge.
I think things will get worse.
He's got to realize it would get much worse.
Yes.
And so he's got to realize that this is something that deserves its opportunity to get the message out, and the best way to do that is to respect this movement, respect how peaceful it's been.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Our guest was Bill de Blasio, public advocate. Thank
Thanks
you very
much, Greg.
Okay.